Well, good morning. So last week, this week we passed over crossover day in this legislative session, which means we're approaching the end. There's still a lot of work to be done, and this morning I'd like to talk about one issue in particular, and that's the prison. We've received the message that our current prison plan does not have the buy-in this legislative session. We've also heard agreement from pretty much everyone that we need a new prison. So I'd like to discuss with you what comes next. Everything that came before is now in the rearview mirror. From now on, we're looking forward. Today, I'd like to announce Project Prison Reset. I will convene a working group of solution seekers, including House members, senators, and outside parties. The purpose of this group is to answer three main questions. Number one, do we need a prison? And I think the answer is a clear yes, and this group should agree. Number two, how big should the new prison be? And number three, where should that prison be built? We will hire a consultant to make sure that we're all working from the same set of facts without any bias and to bring a fresh perspective. And we will make sure that they can work within our timeline. These are the details of that working group. First, it will include 8 House members, 7 senators, and 6 or 7 outside individuals. The House members will be Speaker Hansen, Leader Odenbach, Speaker Pro Tem Lems, Tim Reich, Greg Jamieson, Brian Mulder, Jack Colbeck, and Aaron Healy. The senators will be President Pro Tem Carr, Leader Melhoff, Ernie Otten, Mark Lapke, Steve Colbeck, Joy Hahn, and Jamie Smith. The outside individuals will include Lieutenant Governor Van Huysen, who will chair that committee or that group, retired Judge Jane Whiff Fifley, Tiffany Wolfgang, a behavior health specialist, Chief Jason Foote of the Yankton Police Department, Minnehaha County Sheriff Mike Milstead, Minnehaha County State's Attorney Daniel Hager, and Attorney General Jack Lee. This will be the schedule of that task force. Earlier this morning, I signed an executive order forming the work group. The work group's first meeting will be on April 2nd. From that point on, the group will meet every 4 weeks until our work is concluded. We will organize tours of the state penitentiary for the working group, since not everyone has been inside. And I will call a special session to be held on July 22nd, which gives the group the chance to meet 4 times. Again, I am only interested in moving forward. We are focused totally on solutions. We will work together to make sure we do this right. On a different note, I was very pleased to see my proposal to address raising property taxes for South Dakota homeowners pass the Senate with a strong majority, and we will continue to work on that bill as it moves through the process. Late last week and into the weekend, I was in Washington, D.C. for the National Governors Meeting. There were about 45 governors in attendance. I had several meetings with Trump administration officials and other governors to discuss key priorities that will keep South Dakota strong, safe, and free. I had several meetings with the USDA Secretary Brooke Rollins, and I'm excited that she will help us keep agriculture open for opportunity here in South Dakota. We talked about a variety of items, including making things easier for our farmers and ranchers. In particular, we talked about the timber harvesting industry and the Black Hills. I highlighted the mismanagement of the forest by the federal government that's been going on for a number of years. And I think we're back on track to get things in much better shape. I really felt optimistic about the meetings that we had with these individual cabinet members. We also talked about addressing the avian flu, and I'm very encouraged by the plan that she's put together. I think we all saw in the press ideas on that plan just yesterday. I met with the U.S. Department of the Interior Secretary Doug Burgum. We discussed various energy initiatives. As you know, he's working with me to bring fireworks back to Mount Rushmore in 2026. I discussed VA health care concerns with Department of Veterans Affairs Secretary Doug Collins. Also, I touched on improving environment regulations to help our ag producers with EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin. Met with President Trump as well. He even gave us a private tour of the White House the last day we were there at the main event. Sandy and I had a long conversation with former Governor Secretary Noem and Brian Noem at that event. I came home very excited about the connections that we made in that time. It was pretty incredible. Like I said, 45 governors, amazed at how many of them we had the one-on-one time with in a series of different meetings. I think I met with Secretary Rollins no less than 4 times during that period. So it was a very, I thought, a very fruitful use of my time, and made a lot of great connections. So with that, I'll open up for questions.
Governor Dan Santel with KELOLAND News. As far as where a new men's prison could go, is that very much an open question with an unknown answer right now, or does the Lincoln County site, that proposed site, remain the administration's preference? What do you have to say about that?
We're moving forward. We've delayed work on that site pending the outcome of this meeting. That will be up to the committee. That's one of the questions we have to answer. So we're leaving everything on the table right now.
Josh Heyer, South Dakota Searchlight. Regarding the property tax discussion, 2 years ago, there was this need for a summer study to help cash-strapped counties. This year on the floor, we're hearing rhetoric about how spending at the county level is the problem. And I'm wondering if you kind of tell me your view on that,
Well, I'll tell you from my perspective in state government, what we're working toward, especially in light of DOGE at the federal level, where they're looking for efficiencies in government. I've met with all of our cabinet before I even took the oath of office, and told them that I wanted them to be looking in the light of the creation of DOGE and with the Chevron case that opens opportunity for us to find efficiencies in state government working with the federal government. And I believe the county should do the same thing. In the state, when we have a downturn in our economy, we've had to make tough decisions in the year past. Remember 2012? We did the 10% across the board. 11%, 2011. 2011, and that was Governor Dugard's first year. Tough decisions had to be made then at the state level, and I think counties oftentimes aren't held to the same standard, but they should be looking for more efficiencies.
On the prison topic, they're already moving dirt, some things out there. Can you talk to us about what's do they pause that now? How does that work in practicality?
Well, I'll have Ryan come up. He can give you better details of the status of that.
Thank you, Governor. Yes, we can pause the work on the site while the task force does has its meetings and makes its recommendation. And so We have a variety of utility contracts that we've talked about in the last week that are still under contract, where those materials have a long lead time and could be beneficial to any site. So we don't plan to cancel those contracts, but we can suspend the dirt work that is going on right now until the task force completes its job.
Is the idea of a special session so work could potentially continue there during this upcoming construction season? Why not wait till next session?
You know, we've talked about the inflation being $30 to $40 million per year. So if you break that down per month, you know, time is money on a project like this. And so I think the reason that you keep all options on the table is to try and look at all options, but be the best steward of the taxpayer money that we can.
Is the idea though, after a vote in July, I think you said it was 22nd, to start work the next day if the site's already in hand?
That would be a lot to determine and could be determined throughout as the work group meets. Very rarely would you start construction the very next day, right, to the point of your question. But the idea would be able to have certainty. So, right, so if the legislature votes, there's now certainty in the process, certainty in the funding, and certainty in what those next steps will be. So that would be the goal, is fiscal responsibility and certainty.
Thank you.
It's been stated that the new facility might open when HB 1025 was still being deliberated in 29. Is it still possible that a new men's prison could open up in South Dakota by 2029, or is that now going to need to be pushed down the road?
Well, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, quite frankly. And it would be largely contingent upon what decision is made by that task force.
Grant Green with Dakota News Now and Dakota Territory. I think it's fair to say that there are like Lincoln County residents that have obviously been a little frustrated by the lack of transparency between the DOC and, you know, themselves. And I wanted to ask, going forward in these next few months, how do you feel like that communication can improve, that if the location stays the same, that they feel more comfortable with that decision?
Well, again, not looking back, and that's tempting for me to take the bait and looking back. I'm not going to. I'll say looking forward. We obviously, these meetings, the task force meetings will be open to the public, and by all means, that's what they're about, is to receive questions and answer questions.
If they end up with the same site, recommendations for even more spending, are you gonna say I told you so?
No, I'm not.
Does this give any chance that there might be other bidders when we talk about increased price? I believe there's only like one bidder, right? I mean, is there a chance that we start seeing other bidders come in, you know, as far as being able to design and build this prison?
Again, that would be totally contingent upon the outcome of that committee, so don't have a good answer to that.
Can you address that claim of one bidder? You know, is that true that there was one bid for this whole entire thing?
Ryan's explained this before, and I'll have him explain it now. Ryan.
We had a construction manager at risk, right? So it was a joint venture partnership that we had a construction manager at risk. And so that person responded to an RFP, and then they managed that process. Their contract required them to then bid out each subcomponent. So there were multiple bidders and going to continue to be multiple bidders on each piece, whether it's the dirt work, the concrete, the electrical, the HVAC, all of those are bid out by the construction manager at risk. So it would not be accurate to say there was only one bidder. We had a construction manager who was managing that bid process and required by the bid to bid out each component.
How many submitters on the RFP for a construction manager did you get?
That was the one responded, the joint venture between Henry Carlson and J.E. Dunn. But then again, like I said, they are required to bid out each subcomponent. So we had multiple, the stuff that they were working on had received multiple bids from multiple local contractors. And so there was lots of bidding. And if those bids come in cheaper, the state would have received those savings. But
Will there be a request for proposal process for the new consultant? And do you anticipate it being the same expense as the last one?
Yeah, it depends on what the task force wants to do and how they want to proceed. Governor talked about hiring a consultant, and so that would be an RFP process. That's a little different than hiring a construction manager, though. That is looking at all the options.
You guys won't formally seek the new consultant until after the task force convenes.
No,
To be clear, that we will be hiring a consultant to analyze the situation for the task force. That will be information the task force will consider. Then we're also talking about the construction manager, which is a different thing. And so I think we're talking about two different things.
There was a consultant hired after the shakeup at the penitentiary a few years ago under the Nome administration, which led to where we are now, or it was leaned on to come up with this plan.
Right.
There was, I think they were $300,000 is what they were paid, somewhere in there.
I don't know what they're.
Well, I mean, this is essentially the same work, same scope of work that they did 3-4 years ago, whenever that was.
Well, as the governor said, this is a reset of the process and engaging the people who need to be involved to get us to the finish line on a plan that has legislative support. And so, being on House Appropriations, I sat through hours of meetings last year of the opponents trying to punch holes in the consultant's report. And so I don't think it's viable to just rely on the old consultant's report, because there are people who don't accept it. So that's why we need to hit the reset button and start over on some of these things.
We're gonna go to the phones for a few questions quick.
Governor John Holt, South Dakota Searchlight. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. I noticed that you didn't say Secretary Wasco's name on the list of people on the task force. Can you tell me the status there or the reason why she wouldn't be on that list?
Well, quite simply, she isn't on the list because she will be, she'll be at these hearings, I would speculate, and would be there to answer questions and participate from that perspective, not as a member of the task forse.
Same as Bruner.
Okay, thank you. Can I have one
Yeah,
follow-up?
no different than Ryan Bruner here, who's an expert in his own right, will also be part of those discussions, but there as a witness and to answer questions.
Okay.
Yeah, what's
Thank
your
you.
follow-up?
I was wondering, we keep saying prison singular. The previous consultant's report suggested several sort of smaller facilities. I know there are issues in Springfield. There are questions about Yankton. Are you committed to a single prison, or is there a possibility that there could be smaller facilities in several locations that could be coming out of this report?
Again,
The task force.
again, all the cards are on the table.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would these meetings be in various locations across the state, all in Pierre? And will they be open to the public like any other committee meeting here in this building?
Yes, the answer to the last question is yes, they'll be open to public. The answer, as far as location, that will be up to the committees. I think that they're going to be at least one meeting. I think they would have in Sioux Falls, so they can cover more ground. But I wouldn't speculate on what those decisions haven't been made. That'll the chairman of that task force will be a big part of deciding where the appropriate place to have these meetings are.
Can I add something?
Please.
Yeah, and I would just add, we know that a lot of interest is in Sioux Falls, and I think something like 3/4 of the task force members from Sioux Falls are very nearby. So I expect at least one of these meetings will be in Sioux Falls, maybe more.
We have time for 2 more questions here.
I would add to that too, just as a matter of information and perspective, this is nothing like a committee hearing. And when we pick this group, we understand fully that this task force is there to come up with the right solution, because at the end of the day, we need buy-in from both chambers. in a big way to get this done. So we were very deliberate in the choices we made for members of this committee that had an understanding of it and had a heart to resolve this issue in the best way possible. So we're being as palms up and transparent and to make this as sound a process and as bulletproof process from a perception standpoint as it can possibly be.
Lisa Ruben, SDPB. I was wondering, setting aside the prison project real quick, how you feel about transferring the brand board from the Department of Ag to potentially school and public lands?
You want me to take that one?
Yeah, you want to. Well, well, I oppose it. I think it's, well, it's just ironic that, especially now, I've been very involved in years past with the brand board and a lot of the laws regarding the brand board and the brand districts I've helped write. And so it seems just terribly ironic that at a period of time when a governor with 65 years on a ranch in western South Dakota, you want to take control of the brand board away from him and put it in the hands of a guy that I'll say might not know the front end of a cow from the back. Might seem a little ironic. I'm sure Brock won't take offense to that.
Governor, there's been news of your predecessor's use of state credit cards. Are you familiar with the level of spending under the prior administration on those state-issued credit cards? Do you find it appropriate? And what is your approach to using state credit cards?
Well, I'll just tell you what I rarely use my state credit card. There's times when I'm out with a group and a lot of times I forget that I even have one. I don't know how many times I've just paid for stuff on my own credit card just because I don't even remember I have it. So won't be an issue with me, and I'm not looking back, and I don't know what has happened in the past. I just know where I'm at. That's not a problem.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for your questions and have a great rest of your day.